G'day! Welcome to the Nerdy Dad channel and the Nerdy Dad review of the Legend of Vox Machina episodes 7 through 9. Da 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 da. I am having such a good time with this series, but we're not going to have much to talk about unless I spoil these episodes. So consider this your spoiler warning. Da 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 da. Each and every week, this series continues to grab me, and this is still true with episodes 7 through 9. The 7th episode, Scanbo, is really Scanlan's episode to shine. But before we get to Scanlan, it starts with a flashback that shows us both the relationship between the Derolos and Anders, and what is likely a reason, if not the reason, that the Briarwoods decided to take over Whitestone. It then picks up in the aftermath of last week's jailbreak. Look, the interaction between Vax and Percy was intense, as it should be. And then we get some backstory on the gun and the way Percy appears to be taken over, for want of a better word, near his targets. Archie tries to convince Percy to lead the resistance, but at this point he's still reluctant to take the lead. It's not long after this, while they're surveying Anders' mansion, that Scanlan offers to create a diversion. Scanlan, as always, is hilarious. Complications ensue when he can't burn down the Duke's house from the outside because of the weather. Starting with the window that he breaks into being the lavatory, which is occupied by the Duke. I did get a bit of a chuckle out of the guards that looked like they're playing D&D. Look, it's funny that he drinks these potions while having absolutely no idea what they do. Chaos and hilarity ensue as Scanlan does eventually succeed in burning down the mansion. Also of note, he discovers a map that might become important to the plot later. The rest of Vox Machina assaults Anders' mansion until Percy corners Anders, who takes Cassandra hostage, and the episode ends with Anders slitting her throat and bringing us into the next episode, Silver Tongue. This episode opens with Pike still at the temple, trying unsuccessfully to regain her connection to the light. She's determined and she keeps pushing, despite the advice of the head cleric. We then return to Vox Machina and a dying Cassandra. Anders' tongue has a range of magical powers that provide the action of the episode. Caliph manages to heal Cassandra before joining the fray against the Professor, and before Percy gets taken over again and crosses another name off his list, before being reunited with Cassandra. I loved it, especially the way that the Silver Tongue manages to take over first Grog, then the rest of Vox Machina, and turn them against Percy. Look, it's just a whole lot of fun this episode. And following that, Calith's signal to the Resistance draws the attention of Delilah, which sets in motion the end tag of Scanlan running away from a horde of zombies. But not before a scene where Pike comes to terms with what severed her connection to the light. Look, Scanlan and zombies. Scanlan thinking he's going to get a threesome, and then finding out they're zombies. Look, it's Scanlan. He has to be the best part of this series. Episode 9, The Tide of Bones, opens with a flashback that gives us the origin of the Briarwoods and their service to the Whispered One, which, if I remember my Dungeons & Dragons lore correctly, is the god Vecna. The episode then shifts back to Vox Machina, severely overwhelmed by the horde of undead. They make it to a safe house, where Percy once again rejects the call to leadership, before that safe house is overrun. As I said last week, I love the look of those undead giants. It's creepy. Duke Vedmire chases Scanlan through the raging battle with the undead, before being engaged by Archie. Then, in what is the moment that will eventually force Percy to take charge and lead, Archie is cut in half. The survivors, including Vox Machina, retreat to the Sun Tree, and Lord Percival de Rollo, I'm not going to try and give his full name, gave a speech that inspired the villagers to follow him into battle with the Horde. Vax delivers an awkward, "I love you" to Caliph during the battle, and I laughed so hard at Caliph's reaction to the stereotypical declaration of love when we're all about to die. This is the worst possible time, which, to be honest, it was. And then, when all hope is lost, Pike returns. Well, her astral form rocks up anyway. You definitely want a cleric in your party when your campaign includes the undead. Vedmire was not on Percy's list, so he merely got shot in the kneecap and left to the people of Whitestone, who he terrorised for so long. So long! As Vedmire was strung up, the party approached the castle. And, for another week, we're left with a cliffhanger. I don't know who that woman in the dungeons is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a shape-shifting Delilah. Or, I suppose a more simple answer is, it's the sixth barrel of the gun that Percy didn't reveal when he was going through the list of names in episode 7. As I said up top, and I've said for the last 2 weeks, this show is a blast, and I'm loving it. It's funny and exciting, and it's high fantasy that has its roots in a framework that I love to hear stories from and tell stories in. This is the Nerdy Dad once again signing out.